Gentlemen, good day and welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you guys here. Today is the 25th, a Monday, March 2024. Thank you for tuning in. I'm very, very concerned. I've done a number of shows where I've talked about the vulnerability of our society as we've made it. And one of the biggest vulnerabilities I see within our society is the internet itself. We take our internet for granted. Wake up every morning, your cell phone works, you look on the internet, find out what's going on in the world, or your home computer. And this is like we've substituted this for what we used to have as a system of getting the news around, Used to be newspapers or the television news. And the television news we used to get, back in the days of television, the TVs used to have a receiver on them, and they used to receive it from the airwaves, which came from the television stations, which broadcast all across the country. They've removed that system basically now. I remember when I was a kid, you used to have a TV antenna, an antenna to pick up the signal, and that system is much harder to break within the structure of the system. So one of the things I'm going to point out here is we had some terror attacks here in Moscow. Very, very tragic. And imagine how terrible it is. These people are going to a concert. They got families at home and everything. And all of a sudden, their lives were tragically ended. It just seems senseless to me, and it seems horrible, to say the least, what happened in Russia, just in the last, honest to gosh, I was looking this article over, and here's a picture of some of these terrorists in Moscow. I guess this is 3 of them. I think this is the same guy, the guy on the left here. 2 pictures of the same guy. And this guy, one of them looked like he was out of it. The guy on the right there, who's in the chair. But one of the things I found interesting was they were interviewing one of these guys. Well, not really interviewing him, interrogating him. And this is this guy here. And they were asking him where he was and what he was doing, and he confessed to it all. But he said that he was paid. He said that they were going to pay him in total 500,000 Russian rubles. And that up front, they sent him, he said, 250,000 Russian rubles to his bank account or to his account. I don't think he said bank account, but he said to his account. Well, turns out 250,000 rubles. A ruble's only worth a penny. So it's a meager amount of money. I'm not sure. It's either $2,500 or $25,000. I think it's $2,500. But it's still a very meager amount of money, considering the crime that he did. And what this kind of shows you is how people, as the general economy starts to break in the world, people get more and more desperate for smaller and smaller amounts of money. And they'll do more heinous things. And they don't care if they bring the system down to its knees, the people who are doing these things for money. They just see the money dangled in front of them, or the carrot. Now, I'm not particularly talking about him anymore. I'm talking about what's going on right here in Canada. I've been very concerned over the past few months, because war's breaking out in the world, that they'll cut the undersea cables that carry the internet. And in fact, the Houthis did cut undersea cables. But the larger countries have much more technical ability to be able to cut undersea cables. But that's not the only danger. Is when unemployment goes up, when people can't make they oftentimes they turn to crime. And what's bad about this is they're not the same class of criminals that you deal with when you have that we've dealt with for over the years. We've dealt with the classic criminals. In fact, they've done shows and stuff I've seen, like on YouTube, talks about stupid criminals, and it shows the stupid things that they do. That's a certain classic criminal. No, the classic criminal we're looking at when the society gets really hard and tough are the working class people turned to crime. And they're a different class of people. They're much more cunning. They're much more able to put together more elaborate plans. They're able to organize into groups, and they're able to do things that are on a much wider scope or a much wider field, because they're a different class. Ordinarily were working class people who turned to crime because the society got so corrupt and bad that they couldn't make a living with ordinary, conventional. Maybe they just can't get a job, for instance. Or, well, anyway, let's read the article here. What it says here is that a major Canadian telecommunications company is calling upon the government for enhanced security protocols to address the growing problem of copper theft. Bell Canada, in a statement, recently announced that they had installed aerial alarms to fight against and protect communications infrastructure from being tampered with, as thieves, especially since 2022, have been breaking into telecommunications substations to steal the copper cables. Copper theft fluctuates with two things, he says here, says Ross Johnson, a security consultant for critical electrical infrastructure in Canada and the founder of Bridgehead Security Consulting. He said the first thing that these two things that copper theft fluctuates on is the price of copper in the world market. So if the price of copper gets higher, you're more likely to have chances of theft. And the second thing is unemployment. Unemployment. People who are working class people who end up turning toward crime. Whenever you're driving down the freeway or driving down the road, maybe in front of your house, you drive by something that you barely notice, and that's these big cables that are strung on the telephone lines. They're big, thick cables. Oftentimes they're as thick as your arm. Well, you drive by that, but you barely notice it. But if you take a closer look at these cables that you ordinarily drive by, you see all those different color wires inside those cables? Inside each one of those wires is copper. And those cables are heavy. They're like money that's strung everywhere across the country on telephone poles everywhere. It's like money hanging there with nobody guarding it. They can't guard all of the telephone cables, but that's what they're trying to do here. It says a major Canadian telecommunications company is calling upon the government for enhanced security protocols. In other words, they want to try to guard their copper in these copper cables. It says that they are trying to install aerial alarms to fight against and protect communications infrastructure. Well, there's a problem with this. Is generally, when you put in alarm systems and stuff, they're probably right now putting them in on the substation level. So the substations where the most copper is, they're probably putting the alarm systems in. But they can't cover every copper cable. There's one in front of everybody's house. So what happens if things get really bad? If we get some sort of a Great Depression Part 2. Well, if this is already starting to happen, and joblessness is not really all that bad right now, and they're talking here also about providers improve the resiliency of Canada's it's the same thing in the United States. This is another vulnerability, and yet a long list of vulnerabilities in our society. We've moved too fast. From infrastructure we used to have that was very reliable and almost impossible to take down. The newspapers and the television networks we used to rely upon. The evening news would come on every night. A lot of people would get home from work. They'd wait for the evening news to come on. First thing they wanted to watch, but it was broadcast to them. Each individual had a home television antenna, and it was broadcast across the air. There's nothing to cut. Now we've got this new infrastructure we've moved into way too fast. And because we've moved into it so fast, we haven't seen the vulnerabilities, and we've taken out our old system that we used to have in place. It was not near as vulnerable. In my mind, if we get a breakdown in society to a certain point, yes, this is not going to be something that's a future issue, which is what it is right now. I mean, these are small attacks on the telecommunications infrastructure, but this could grow into something that gets out of control. And then once you break the telecommunications structure to the point where it's not functioning properly, that sort of chaos that it would generate would make the situation 100 times worse, because it would start to cause a decay in society that would spiral this out of control to where I think you guys get the point of just how bad and how quick this could escalate into something really, really horrible. Not just the telecommunications cables as well, but our whole electrical grid infrastructure is all very not quite, I don't see it as being quite as vulnerable unless there's some sort of an EMP attack or something like that. But it's vulnerable too. Our whole system that we've created has these enormous vulnerabilities that most people can't see. But I hope you guys watching this show are starting to see and starting to realize just how vulnerable we really are as a modern society, a technical society. Now, because when this cable was cut right here, I don't know what the picture exactly what it's from, but it says that the lines were cut near Abbey Don Road in Kingston. I imagine some people must have went without cellular service or stuff, or without internet because of that cut. And how long did it take to fix it? We just don't, I don't know, I don't have those facts here right now, but I know how dangerous this situation really is. And so, people, going back to this picture of this guy on the ground who did this horrible, heinous act, and he was confessing that he did it for money, and a very small amount of money. And basically what I'm saying is what that guy's holding in his hand right there is money. But it's also what carries our internet signals and stuff. And so I'm pointing this out to you guys. This is very, very serious. It's very worrying to me. Now, precious metals today. You know, we're seeing the silver price at $24.77. It's up 14 cents. Metals is what really, two things is really runs our whole society. You're watching me right now. There's silver inside whatever device it is that you're watching me on. Metals. Our whole society. The power inside your house. Maybe you ran the air conditioner last night. The power comes through copper cables. Our whole society runs on metals. Metals that make our cars. Aluminum, steel, copper, zinc, gold, silver, metals, and oil. All the oil-based products, plastics, The seats in your car, the dashboard, all that stuff is all petroleum distillates and stuff that they use. Everything down to where even when you get a hemorrhoid, the hemorrhoid cream is probably made out of petroleum products. Everything in our entire society comes from products that we found. Basically, if you were to go back to caveman times, these products were laying around on the earth. You know, down in the Middle East, the oil was bubbling out of the ground. In West Texas, the oil was bubbling out of the ground, ready to be plucked. Nobody owned it. Anybody could have it. They just had to bottle it. They walked down the streams when they went out to Sutter's Mill, you know. Gold was laying in the bottom of the stream bed. It looked like rocks. They just went and picked them up. It was gold. All these elements are just here. But there's another thing too, is we've been actually taking these elements and using them. Steel and copper and oil and everything else. We've been hauling it out and using it and consuming it for a very long time now, especially oil. We're going to get into the oil price today, but my point is what we've created is, over a period of thousands of years, we've created a society for ourselves, a civilization for ourselves. But we've moved so fast, we haven't stopped to think about the vulnerabilities of our civilization. And there's going to be a day of reckoning. So silver price is $47.73. Gold price today, $21.78 for gold. It's up $14.10 on the day so far. Now, cryptocurrency today, Bitcoin is at 69,269, and I think Bitcoin is starting to gain its energy back again. Nothing goes up in a straight line. I told you guys that I was kind of expecting that pullback. I think the pullback, it looks to me like it's coming to a close, and now we might see her tear into a bull again. Maybe next stop might be 80,000, but it's at 69,325. Ethereum is at 3560, and we're looking at XRP at 64 cents. Now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average today is down 132 points at 39,343. Moving on and taking a look at crude oil, 81.69. It's up $1.06 today. Bonds and rates, we're looking at rising yields today. We're looking at the 10 years up 2.9 basis points at 4.24, and the U.S. 30 years at 4.41. It's up 2.2 basis points. And the dollar index today, 104.24. It looks like the dollar's going up today. Of course, it has been going sideways, but it doesn't surprise me to see the dollar going up against these other currencies. So this index does have a lot of meaning, and in a way it doesn't, you know, because it's what they're comparing the dollar against. Okay, guys. In our vulnerable society we have right now, you know, we need to try to be upstanding citizens, even though we see the world decaying around us. You know, you don't know what other people are going through. And so people are on edge now, and they're getting more and more on edge. So, you know, you got to keep a calm, cool, collective head. Some people you might meet, they might be losing it. But you don't know what they just went through. Maybe they lost a child, or maybe they're going through a breakup, or maybe, goodness knows, there's so many things that could be happening to them in their life, and you don't know what is happening. Maybe they're edgy for a reason. Maybe, you know, if they answer you with a nasty remark or whatever, you know, try not to jump right in their face and get right back at them, because that only makes things worse. You know, a calm answer. Because maybe they're having a really bad day. A lot of people are on edge now. Maybe you guys, some of you guys are right now watching my show. Maybe you're upset about something that happened to you. It's a very, very bad world out there right now we live in. It's not the world that we had even 5 years ago. And it could suddenly get a whole lot worse, and these things like people stealing copper and knocking down the communications, when they do something like that, and then suddenly your cell phone's out, then you're having a bad day, and that just makes things a whole lot worse because of the after effect of what they do. It's almost like, what's a term? Craziness breeds more craziness. You know what I mean? Like, one thing breaks and it has a cascading effect of making other things start to... It's like... Thank you guys for listening to the show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.